Okay, good morning, good morning once again. Nogra, good line mi bungyan. This morning, no continue talk brimi lo foreign policy in PNG, a very important topic. And you can see a lot of things that are happening around us, and we'll soon have the second foreign policy white paper out next month. So it's exciting times looking at it from a foreign policy perspective. So this week is week 7. We'll continue on with topic 5, which is on foreign policy, the foreign policy review in 1979. And once again, you may privileged to got Mr. Lauyako, a practitioner, writer, a very experienced person in the public service to guide us through and help us in our discussion on foreign policy. So without further delay, I'll hand over the virtual microphone to our sessional lecturer, Mr. Lauyako. Please, Mr. Ako, go ahead.
Thank you to Mr. Aguirre, and good morning, everyone. Welcome back again to our Tuesday session. I'm actually at the Ella Beach Cave IEA school, attending a workshop. So I took an hour or so off to come and do this. I'll share now. Oh, shoot. Becoming good at this. There we go. Okay. So that's our topic for our conversation this morning, Foreign Policy Review, 1979. So by 1978, after the first ever general elections, which happened in 77, the general feeling in government was that time had come to maybe relook at the universalism foreign policy, the French to Mitunan, again, and start considering and maybe charting a new way forward. So after all, PNG, and we were already into our third year as an independent country. Our prime minister and ministers were now traveling frequently throughout the world promoting the universalism mantra. And we were now ready to proactively participate in a world whose geopolitical power plays remained foreign to us. So the foreign policy review, was it by choice? How was the review carried out? A couple of years ago, we had Mr. Aguirre invited Professor Ted Wolfers, who was the person who wrote in the forefront of writing that foreign policy of active and selective engagement. And we heard from him that the government had established its review team to carry out this exercise. He said that we had limited capacity then, made more challenging by the fact that the 5 national goals and directive principles were not supported by any coherent framework until much more later in our history. So the picture you see there is me during one of our presentations at the UPN. This is a foreign international relations class, but I think this was at the science lecture theater. Okay. So the years between 1975 and 1980 were years of orientation in the international community, with the establishment of diplomatic relations with a record 60 countries. This was in addition to membership of international organizations. PNG also ratified a number of agreements as part of these engagements. Now, on the domestic front, we had the urban-rural drift and its ensuing consequences of social issues, which started troubling the government. Further, party politics within the greater government system and within cabinet started encroaching into the core of government, adding additional strain on the implementation of economic development agendas. Not plans, mind you, these were agendas that were in place. The infant Papua New Guinea public and foreign service was not at a position to add value to these opportunities, despite their valiant efforts to do so. However, it would be Papua New Guinea's relations with its immediate neighbors, in particular Australia on the Torres Straits and Indonesia on the Irian Jaya issue that would prompt the review of its initial foreign policy. So this would not be the only factors leading up to the review, but political instability within government would also prompt the shift towards selective engagement as opposed to being friends to all, enemy to none. So we can see that situations during that time started pushing, influencing the need to do a review of the foreign policy of enemy to friends to all, enemy to none. Man, how can we be enemy to all? Anyway, so the factors that brought about the review, the agreements which PNG signed with its immediate neighbors, while giving greater leverage to Indonesia, this also provided Papua New Guinea with the great incentive to see that Article 8 of the basic agreement, which is referred on the screen, was given full effect, in that the border area should not be allowed to be used as a sanctuary, staging area, or basis, or for illegal activities against the other. This was in reference to the opium. And now for Indonesia, this meant continued active cooperation with PNG to suppress the opium activities. The real challenge to Indonesian sovereignty was not military. It was the continued political existence of the OPM, which had invoked sympathy and popular support among the Melanesians of Papua New Guinea and the other Pacific Islands. This political existence symbolized the worst kind of Indonesian fear, and which was the disintegration of its republic. So those who might sympathize with the opium aspiration became enemies of the Indonesian Republic overnight. Papua New Guinea's posture with respect to the opium was the touchstone. Around this time also, anti-Indonesian outbursts in Papua New Guinea fueled the growing bitterness, and Indonesia warned of possible breakdown in relations. Border flare-ups continued with Indonesia, and with Indonesia denying that incursions were taking place when they were actually allegedly to be taking place. So although Indonesia welcomed the emergence of Papua New Guinea as a sovereign and equal member of the international community and continued to pledge its friendship and cooperation, the Somali government realistically recognized and accepted as a basis of its own policy making the underlying fears and concerns of its neighbor, which are implicitly preparing to accede to special Indonesian relations. Throughout 1978 and 1979, the Somali government stiffened its own internal policing of the border, exiled OPM leaders, repatriated some illegal border crossers, maintained tighter control of the political activities of permissive residents, and otherwise demonstrated the political reality of the situation, despite domestic pressures to accept border crossers and tweak the status quo. Port Moresby accommodated Indonesia's territorial jurisdiction and claims by specifically accepting Indonesia's archipelago principle, and despite initial fears of the implication of the Timor takeover, stated in the Somaro-Suharto joint communique that it regarded the question of East Timor entirely as a domestic matter for Indonesia. The process of conciliation was capped by President Suharto's state visit to Port Moresby in June 1979. Now, these are interesting pictures which I continue to present here, because these pictures were taken during the special MSG meeting held in Papua New Guinea early in 2018. So both Ambassador Pomali and I, now Chief Secretary Pomali, were invited to attend. So you can see that here we are posing with our Indonesian APEC colleagues during that meeting, and on the other picture is with the West Papuan leader. So the picture, like they say that pictures say pictures portray 1,000 stories, and you can see that the Indonesian delegation to the MSG, knowing that PNG was hosting APEC then, sent the APEC senior official and his deputy. So the gentleman in yellow was the 2018 Indonesian APEC senior official. Andre on the other side was my peer. So they sent them as part of the Indonesian delegation. And we all met up there and we discussed mutual issues of mutual concern. While on the other picture, you'll see us standing with the Indonesian, one of the Indonesian freedom movement leaders. And you have the MSG director, former, and also our former High Commissioner to Fiji, Mr. Peter Ayafere on the right of the screen, and Mr. Frank Kaisi, the current DepSec at the Prime Minister's Department. So these were pictures taken during the special MSG meeting. You can make up your conclusion on the pictures, okay? So like I mentioned earlier on that the review of the foreign policy came about through two initiatives, two ongoing issues, the Torres Strait issue and with Australia and the OPM with Indonesia. So after the general elections in 1977, then the previous foreign minister's independence, Albert Marikiki, lost his seat, while Sebia Olewale held on onto he won his seat again. So during the cabinet appointments, Sebia was appointed Minister for Foreign Affairs. Now, during one of his speeches regarding Papua New Guinea's directions in international relations, he said, "This country became independent 2 years ago. We have to see how that policy works before we can review it." This is referencing the French to enemy to none, and then have an international policy drawn up. This can be taken out of Jonathan Ritchie's 2012 book on Serbia. So Serbia said this while PNG continued to develop its network of relationship and treaties with other countries and blocs around the world. His main pressing task remained how to satisfactorily conclude the unfinished business before independence. And this was the business referring to the border with Australia to the south across the Torres Straits. This was a matter of great importance to the young nation of Papua New Guinea, determining borders being a fundamental requirement of defining our nation itself. See, the border cut across traditional fishing and trading grounds, legally excluding many Papuans from their ancestral heritage. So while the people of the Papuan coast were more concerned over traditional rights of access to the marine and seabed resources, the inhabitants of the Torres Strait Islands had shown their commitment to remaining within Australia. This allowed the compromise that eventually was embodied in the treaty, where multiple boundaries were established to govern the seabed and fisheries as well as the islands, with the intention of satisfying all parties. In making the agreement on Daru on 2 November 1978 by Sebia Olewale and Andrew Peacock, Australian Minister for Foreign Affairs then, this epitomized those issues with regards to the seabeds and fisheries, and with regard to the multiple boundaries which were drawn up. Now, the China influence, as you can see, started the moment we became an independent country in 1975. So the Somali government had reacted to these engulfing events by adopting an economic development plan that emphasized rural development and decentralization to slow down or to curb this ebb and drift towards self-sufficiency, at least on food production. This background facts on screen provided some explanations on Prime Minister Somare's first visit trip to China. You see, by this, when Chief Somare made this visit, he became the first head of state after the death of Chairman Mao to be received by Chairman Mao's successor, Hua Guofeng. So him and his delegation were given a truly regal welcome and hosted generously. Now, while this was happening, Indonesia had issues with the new nation across the border. And regardless of the accuracy of President Suharto's information on the screen, and the critical point remained that PNG was in the middle of an encircling set of Western-dominated countries. You see, to the west was Indonesia, to the east, the Solomon Islands, to the south, Australia, and to the northeast, the U.S. trusted territories of Micronesia. Geopolitically, while these national parameters were not determinative of the choice of foreign policy, they suggested Papua New Guinea's experimentation with policies disturbing or provocating its neighbors. The relationship with China being one classic example. So this was why Papua New Guinea's promulgation of its foreign policy to the UN General Assembly on 20th September 1976 was purposely to balance these traits. However, there remain economically compromising factors. Firstly, PNG's annual budget couldn't be met from its own tax base. An outright Australian grant was required to cover the 45 to 50% annual deficit. In March 1976, Australia announced a massive 3-year aid package of over $1 billion. Secondly, the increase in Japanese investments in copper and timber imports. And thirdly, capital investments in all sectors, ranging from the large copper operations to supermarkets, motels, banks, which were primarily Australian-owned. Other observers have suggested that Grand Chief Somare's active courtship of China was not a defiance of Papua New Guinea's dependency relationship with its Western sponsors, but rather a tactic intended on improving his sagging popularity in the face of the upcoming 1977 general elections. These were observations by some experts. Now, the coalition government, which he led, by then had suffered setbacks. The leader of one of the three coalition parties had publicly called him a dictator, which precipitated a prolonged open coalition struggle. Now, although he was able to hold on to a majority in parliament, he alienated a number of Highlands leaders who had withdrawn their support or sympathies from his government. So further, his fight against a 15 to 20% inflation rate, urban unemployment, and increased industrial strike severely tarnished his image and popularity. Now, the picture there shows the APEC bilateral process. So in APEC, the APEC process advances bilateral engagements at all levels. So this is a bilateral meeting at the senior official level between Ambassador Pomaliu, PNG, and Ambassador Tanjian, both APEC senior officials. The bilaterals, as you can see, they are discussing agendas that cover everything of mutual interest. So you can see from this picture and the other picture which we took during the special MSG that bilateral relations, bilateral engagements at all levels can continue to enhance relationship despite what the politics of the day portrays. So we look at the domestic politics and especially the 1977 general elections. The usual 4-year terms of the House of Assembly was extended to 5 years shortly before independence, thereby pushing back elections to mid-1977. Okay, because the other House of Assembly elections were held in 1972. So that has remained. So when you count the 5 years backwards, you will realize that that's how it has happened for us in our history. So in 1977, over 900 candidates contested the elections, and 3 women were elected to parliament. So Pangu had over 30 seats at the end of the elections, and they were invited to form government under coalition with the PPP's 15 seats. Sir Michael Somare and Sir Julius Chen, leaders of these 2 parties, both became prime minister and deputy prime minister respectively. Pangu Sebiolewale became foreign minister. Tei Yabale and his United Party of 23 formed the country's first ever opposition. Now, this is the first ever opposition after independence 2 years earlier. So, Sir Kingsford Dibela was the first Governor General after the elections. We are talking about the issues that led to the review of the 1975 foreign policy. Yeah? So this is one of them. Sir Julius as a People Progress Party, in light of the situation in government then, thought that there was a lack of consultation in key government decisions by the other members of the coalition or by the influencing members of the coalition. So his party left the coalition government and they formed and became minority crossbenchers. Pangu Party and the National Party then formed a new coalition government. Sir Julius saw Pangu Party as the right political party to work with PPP at the inception of the country's political independence. But just after 4 years of independence, Pangu Party and Sir J's PPP fell apart. In his book, Sir Julius said it, meaning Pangu Party, it was a party with numbers, but with no policy guidelines and real implementation machinery. So you can read this on page 95 of his book to confirm and come up with your own assessment. So the first vote of no confidence happened in 1980. A vote of no confidence on Prime Minister Somare then. It was the complete turning point on Pangu-PPP relations. Sir Julius inferred that the late Sir Yambaki Okuk was the driving force behind the change that saw him become the Prime Minister. Sir Julius seemed to hold Sir Yambaki Okuk in high esteem, although he thought he was abrupt and reactionary in nature as a Highlander. Understandably, Sir Julius adored the late Yambaki Okuk because he suggested that they form the new government. It happened. Sir J became the Prime Minister and Yambaki Okuk became his Deputy Prime Minister and Civil Aviation Minister. The PNGDF successful involvement in quelling the Vanuatu secessionist crisis was one of Sir Julius Chen's achievement, or that government's achievement. Sir Julius thought that Australia and New Zealand had done nothing to help the cause of Vanuatu. He reasoned that they didn't want to upset the French and British governments. So PNG acted alone as a Melanesian brother to capture the main targets and quell the crisis from escalating. So the review itself. Now the general guidelines for involvement called for the consolidation and extension of existing relations, independent and constructive cooperation with our neighboring countries, and further diversification and development of potentially significant relations with other countries. So, although one interpretation has it that selective engagement required the identification of enemies as well as friends, the trust or the advance of this was more or less directed towards promoting self-defined real interest. Okay, it was self-defined real interest. Security was one of them, with Australia's security presence hovering in the background. Now, during the first years of independence, the Australian and PNG governments publicly stated their mutual desire to maintain and develop the close and cooperative defense relations between the two countries. This was to include not only matters affecting their common security interests, but an Australian presence in the country to assist in the development of the PNGDF. The white papers emphasized on diversification and development of new relations was particularly highlighted in the discussions of economic links. PNG was economically dependent on Australia. PNG foreign policy decision makers continue to rely on Australian derived information and analysis and counseling. This prompted Prime Minister Chen to set up the National Intelligence Organization to provide independent background for decision making by government. The 1980 Kumul Force intervention in Vanuatu was Papua New Guinea's assertion of regional leadership in the Pacific. So around this time also, PNG made its bid to join ASEAN in order to bridge the Pacific to Southeast Asian issue, Asia as a region. So lately, in the last month or so, Foreign Minister Tachenko has, we read on paper that PNG intends to become a full member. In one of our sessions later, we will talk more on this, but it's not as easy as easily done as we read. Okay. So PNG and ASEAN. Now, during that particular period, Papua New Guinea's bilateral relations with ASEAN was limited to Jakarta and Indonesia. Okay. So Papua New Guinea's bilateral relations with any ASEAN members, particular, was limited to Indonesia. The PNG assertion that a common significant interest laid with ASEAN state wasn't justified either economically, socially, culturally, or politically. This link, however, broadened Papua New Guinea's international context and associated, if not loosely, with one of the world's third world regional groupings. Compounding Papua New Guinea's security vulnerability was its lack of defense capability. The successful Vanuatu expedition was not a real measure of its military prowess, and this was supported in the white paper, which admitted that its armed forces couldn't be relied upon to maintain independence and security in case of threats. The Chen government's collaboration with Indonesia was not dictated by Australian pressure, no, but by the realities of power which both Australia and PNG could independently assess. In 1982, Somares Pangu Party won the national elections, and he was voted in as Prime Minister again. Friendly diplomatic relations ensued with Indonesia, with the signing and exchange of 4 memorandum of agreements, formalizing the Joint Border Committee and giving substantive context to other arrangements derived from the 1979 Basic Agreement on Border Arrangements, signed on 16 December, ratifications exchanged on 6 February 1980, and entered into force the same day, on the 6th of February 1980. Interestingly, you see, some of you would have read on LinkedIn that I did a sub-thesis for my Master of Strategic Management in 2011. And this was based on the what I termed as the Pangasap effect, which was the Pangasap stands for the Pangasap, Pangasap effect, which stood for the Papua New Guinea APEC ASEAN Partnership. It was a thesis, sub-thesis, which was basically about how PNG could work towards joining ASEAN. And one of the main phases of that process was hosting APEC. And this laid the foundations for the eventual write-up of the, this sub-thesis laid the foundation for the eventual write-up of the APEC 28 in operations plan in 2012. I think it was 1,077 pages, and which was eventually endorsed by Cabinet in October 2013 to commence the planning process. Okay. You might be asking why hosting APEC hosting APEC should be a stepping stone to PNG's joining of ASEAN. Well, it's for the simple fact that ASEAN has 11 member states, I think, including East Timor. And 7 of those big boys in ASEAN are members of APEC. You see? So when we hosted APEC, it would convince those members that we are capable of becoming capable of our becoming a member of ASEAN with its commitments. You see, APEC has roughly over 230, 240 meetings in the year. ASEAN has over 1,000, which is why I was saying it's easier said than done. And right now, with the financial constraints we are experiencing, those 1,000 meetings, which are hosted by, like APEC, hosted by a member, have to be attended from home, not by the missions. It must be attended from home, one. Secondly, there must be an ASEAN secretariat, like the PNG APEC secretariat. There must be an ASEAN secretariat to satisfy those commitments. PNG must also have an ASEAN ambassador based at the ASEAN secretariat in Indonesia. The, all those requirements, and when we look at our capability, the capability of our foreign service, it is challenging. Okay, so I leave those two questions from you, and I think that was the last slide. These are the references which I took to cover the our presentation for today, ladies and gentlemen. I will stop there, and then we can. I'll hand the virtual microphone back to Mr. Aguirre again. Thank you. I'll stop sharing also.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ako. Thank you, Drew. And we now open the floor for questions and comments. We'll follow the list from last week, but looks like Tommy and Valerie, they're not in the meeting room. So we'll move on to the next person is Jeffrey. Jeffrey Iwani. Jeffrey, if you have a question, you can go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Yegira and Mr. Ako.
Morning, Jeffrey, please.
Okay. So I have 4 questions. My question is based on previous lecture. So the 2 questions. My first 2 questions is regarding the topic on foreign policy at independence. So my question going back at the time of independence. So Mr. Ako, do you think our culture is also a factor that influence our past leaders on coming up with the foreign relation principle of friends to all and enemies to none? So yeah, this is my first question. Yeah. And my second question, so at the time of independence, PNG is a newly independent state. What are some challenges and opportunities for PNG at the time when establishing relationship with other countries? Okay, moving on to my third question. My third question is based on private sector's role in shaping foreign policy. So, my question is there any laws or regulation in PNG that balance the power between the corporation and the government when interest of both parties are at play? Like, because when talking about interest, corporations definitely have the upper hand to drive the agenda to secure their interests because they have the money. And in PNG, money can make anything happen. So yeah, coming back to my question, is there any laws or regulation in PNG that protects the interest of people of Papua New Guinea from big corporation in PNG when we are talking about private sector's role in shaping foreign policy? So, and to my fourth question, it is a general question I just want to ask. So, Mr. Ko, do you think PNG is effectively leveraging its strategic location to get what we want, or we are just creating a dependency situation? So these are my 4 questions.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Those are very important questions you asked, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. With regards to our foreign policy and its cultural connection, I should say yes to that. When you look at our passing blood place, it covers friends to all, enemy to none. You know, you are not an enemy until you yourself proclaim yourself as one. No. Of course, there are all Birwablo clan stuff. We have our age of kingdom, but well, when the clan comes in together, they work towards supporting that. So I think that was what the leaders, our fathers, brought up. So when they were doing the working towards that French to Mituna, they said, let's move in this way. I mean, passing places. So noting very well that in our past letters, you will note that we said that trade was not part of it all. But these fathers who came on, they knew about traditional trade. They knew about the barter system. And you know that with the barter system, you can't be enemies with the trader. Because something you like exchange him, but less because you can be and by less to exchange him. So you might need to walk instead of walking 1 day across the mountain, you might need to cross a couple of rivers, and the trip might become 3 days for you to get that thing just because you created an enemy somewhere. So that would have been the main reason why they moved on in pushing our country into that direction in the initial stages. Now, the challenges and opportunities for PNG in 1975, there were many in terms of securing our bilateral relations, noting very well that our foreign service was being trained by the Australians. And I can remember some of my former bosses from DFA talking about their secondments at the Australian missions around the world. So those were part of the opportunities. But they also became challenges also because we were we saw what they were doing. We tried to emulate that in our missions. So those are some of the and the main challenges would be we had a infant foreign service, which were trying to be friends to enemy to none. We had an infant foreign service trying to be friends to all, enemy to enemy to none, while at the same time trying to emulate what they were taught at the Australian missions. We must know that all the teachers who came up both in the PNGDF and at Sogeri, and they had a organization called ASOPA, ASOPA. It was an organization of the public administration where all the teachers went there to get orientation for a couple of months before they came up to Papua New Guinea. So you see, in whatever mission school you came out from, or mission line you, and then if you went into a government school, you had the Australian teachers there to teach you. So there was not really much a balance. Although when you read Ted Dero's book when it comes out, he made a difference between the English he learned that Sogeri taught to them by the Australian teachers, and as against the English he was taught when he went down to school at the Slade School in Queensland, where they were assumed to know English, so they were just given everything to do. While in Sogeri, the teachers had the patience in explaining out things properly, looking for examples to put that. So that scenario you went with into the foreign service, so they would have become challenges. Now from the other angle, because this was the Cold War period, we won't even know how the now former Australian government, our former colonial government was working in either promoting our bilateral relations with other countries, PN's bilateral relations with other countries, or working for its own interest with other countries when they were because that experience is easy to confirm. See, when we were getting ready to preparing to host APEC in the years leading up, uh, uh, economists did not voice their doubts to Ambassador Pomaliu and me directly. No, they would voice their doubts through our Australian colleagues or through the PNG APEC Secretariat. And they would tell us that, some economies, they didn't mention the names, but they would say that some economies are still doubting your capability to host. So then we would know, like we, during that flare-up that happened at the International Conference Center in November 2018, when Ambassador Pomaliu thought that because there was a loggerhead on the drafting, he decided to bring in 7 economies with the same agenda, with the same thoughts into one room. And this was excluding the Chinese. We found out a couple of years later that another economy went and told the Chinese that these people were meeting secretly upstairs without your knowledge. So those were the challenges which our foreign service officers had to mitigate in the early years of our independence. Now, in terms of the laws that can balance the power between the private sector and government, I don't think there's actually those laws, but there are laws and regulations which our country has. You look at the Immigration Act, you look at the Investment Act, you look at the bill. I'm not sure whether it has been passed by government or for the special businesses which are restricted to nationals. Those are the laws which I think are there to ensure that there is balance in this. Because companies only come into the foreign policy or geopolitical configuration when their core functions are being affected. That's when they will go. Like the Business Council represents the voice of the private sector, and if there's an issue, the members raise it with them, and they raise it at the G2B consultative forum. Or either ways, government will say that, listen, this is going a bit too far. Your demands to decrease this or increase that is unreasonable. Let's look at other middle grounds to do that. So that's how the balance should come up. And also, not forgetting that foreign policy and geopolitics involves tons and tons of negotiation. Now, suppose you go plaman do tok-tok, backed up by a well-resourced engine, you will take your ways, get your ways. Sampla or bilum dol pull up lo money na kay or something, but ono sa lo totok sa also kame totok bro sa all mangi lo place to sa wara-wara. Because they can come in with fire, but time will sit down. Na you give nice patutok blue go, ay mol go come na collect na rainwater wasime and all but go out. So either way, you told give me your line blue place or tumuna sa to higa way lo tok where you kay boy pasem na tok iga way lo tok lo kamim all man, iga way lo tok na bien sekanim hand all man. Use all those things in international negotiations. Something will place basta place. Use him all this la. International negotiations. Use him. Use your that God-given talent of talking, of thinking. If you are a well-informed person, and when you start discussing soccer and talking about all the soccer stars, Chile, Peru, you put yourself, you break the ice, then you start story, which is the reason why looking at CNN news or listening to well events, reading well events is very, very important, critically important. Now, in terms of the last question of a PNG leveraging is strategic situation or dependency state, I have always maintained the fact that the art of diplomacy is an interesting game. I call it a game, and you need to be in it to play it and win it. If you're just there saying that me play strategic, me play staplo, me play bridge blue Asian, Pacific, people will tell us, so what? What are you doing about it? You know, do you have the bilateral power? Bilateral is your bilateral is your bilateral influence able to influence your surrounding area, or you total business? You look at the for want of a better example, look at that one of this storyboard picking in storyboard picking in this bridge over bridge, and there was a one of the goats or a dwarf guarding the bridge. We you're looking at something similar like the example. So which is why I say you may got or something. Our bilum is full. I mentioned earlier on this year. Our bilum is full. So how are we going to use those stock of garden kaka yumi got look now? That's the one. The 3 billy goats and the troll. How are we going to use the tons? How are we going to use? Let me put it. How are we going to harvest our garden to ensure that our friendship progresses with our neighbors? Because our neighbors want to eat from their garden too, and we're not. There are challenges involved in managing that. It's not like we are a country of desert, where this is a desert. It's not like we are a deserted island where people come and use to transit elsewhere. This island and pull up lo kai inside lo ground, antap lo ground, antap lo air. The onus is on each and every one of us to how to harness that influence and then portray it out publicly in the international scene. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. for your response.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for your question, and thank you, Mr. Ako. Our next person on the list is Valentine.
Good morning. Good morning, Ako and Dora. I actually have about 4 questions and 3 comments. So some of the comments will be in line with the questions. The comments will be made and then the questions will be asked afterwards. So firstly, I'll move on straight to the first comment. All of my questions and comments are based on the session on Somare's influence on policy. So the first comment is people like Sir Michael Sumare and Mauri Kiki were influential in drafting our country's first foreign policy. And I agree with the statement mentioned by Mr. Ako that our founding fathers laid the foundation for how Papua New Guinea carries out its foreign policy. So with that, I'm going to ask my first question. The first question is, why did Sir Michael Sumari and founding fathers chose the friends to all, enemies to none, foreign policy in particular, aside from other foreign policies? that is coming from your opinion. Why did you think they chose this foreign policy in particular?
So we'll go question by question.
Yep, that's the first one.
Okay. In answer to your question, I'll ask it again. You asking why our fathers chose that question, chose that foreign policy, yeah, of French enemy to none. It's simply because we were a new country and we wanted to go out into the world and to strike a friendly relationship with as many bilateral partners as we could. And the only way to do that would be to portray that we were a friendly nation to everyone. So that's how I will answer your question.
All right, thank you. That answers my question. Moving on to the second question. This is just out of curiosity. So there's a comment, and then the comment leads to the question. So my comment is regarding this year Papua New Guinea is going to celebrate 50 years of independence. So during those early pre-independence days, the islands of Papua New Guinea was very underdeveloped compared to the coastal areas, and there were some leaders such as Sete Abal, who opposed independence in the pre-independence days because the islands had less contact with the outside world or with Europeans as compared to the coastal people. So yeah, that's a comment. So the question is, do you think Papua New Guinea was really ready for like independence, leading to independence? Because most of it, the people were not exposed to things like foreign policy or exposure to the outside world and its influences. So that's my question. Do you think Papua New Guinea was really ready for independence, or was it a rushed approach? Yeah.
Now, I'm told that the Constitutional Planning Committee did a widespread consultation around the country before the Constitution was drafted and endorsed, and it became our mama law. Well, from the readings we've done over the last couple of weeks, we can read that not enough consultation was done. You have Papuans complaining that they were not consulted on whether or not they want to become independent. You had like you mentioned, the Highlands leaders saying that they were not consulted enough and people were not ready. So then we can come up with our own opinion about the interest. The personal interest, maybe the personal interest of all. Then you had the groups like the Bully Beef Club coming together to say that this is how it's supposed to be done. And we must note that there were a lot of underlying factors leading to that. So from the 1950s, 1960s, by 1946, 47, Sogeri had been open. Sogeri was open, and it was to be the school that would set up the it would be the school that would teach the young people of this land on how to rebuild their nation, how to build up their nation. So it was set up as a technical school earlier on, and until that was moved down to the technical component was moved down to Comtech or Idubaratech. Then it converted into a proper school. So in those in those schools, most of their, or nearly all their students came from mission schools, and they had already learned English and all those stuff taught by Australians. You see, so when they went out, in the school you started deciding whether to become a doctor or a teacher or even a soldier. Those were the Sogeri had the cadet system, where much of Papua New Guinea's early defense force officer corps came out from. You see, so you look at the underlying factor. Who were the teachers? Australians. Where did they go to train or additional school? They went to Australia to school. So these were the people who saw development in their own eyes when they went down to exchange schools, at the cadet exchange schools in Charters Towers, or they went to visit Sydney or Brisbane. So all looking, Tintin will kirap. Those are my own opinion. Tintin will kirap. So listen, we should become independent. Maybe we are a learned population here. It should be upon us to make that decision for our parents and online staff place. So that was how the independence movement came on board. Although, like I said, the Constitutional Planning Committee, according to the readings we do, did a thorough consultation throughout the country. But based on that too, I am pretty sure that they noted the anti-independence sentiments that we were not ready. They noted them, but maybe the for outweighed the against. And then, like last week when I was talking about the Gough Whitlam's politics in his own party, M2, there was push on the other side too. Maybe suppose him not been become PM, we would have become prime minister. We would have become independent maybe later. But M2, when you do the readings from that, he wanted leadership to become PM. So time sa come around, most PM sa takmo line law or colonial line, most me come a PM and me pa ba independent. And it happened. And then it happened. Also, something happened. So it became like that. Whether we took it, became independent early or late, is now up for debate when we look back at the one. Yeah. But I think we became independent at the right time. It's just a you meet, look out him or something doing me good. So let me give you an example. You see, I was brought up in the army. I grew up in the army. I lived in all the army barracks except Murray Barracks and Golding. I was there, and I say it with conviction and confidence. I was there during the transition. I was there in Lombrum when Q store vehicles would drop off milk and bread upon your order every morning. I was there when they took out money from your pay to cover rations. From your fortnight pay, all barosim, so that every fortnight, all by delivering flour, rice, sometimes sugar, lo house blue, for one house, logra marit kotas. Now, when we took over, we thought that no. Putting more something instead of paying soldier by lookout in which was a good idea too. It was about independence and self-reliance and all that stuff. So that's what I'm saying. You may yet no lookout in good. We did not. Maybe they taught us budgeting, but you may talk no God using. Or maybe back then and plenty garing kay to pull up so lili makmakem buy me holding no buy rice na sugar na corn beef tin fish na garing kay stuff. And then we started always, and then the idea of alcohol came into it, and alcohol was people look. My dad, my late dad told me that they drank alcohol to show that they were equals with the colonial people. But that was something that was restricted. And all white man as well, but the black man can drink alcohol. You were punished. But time freedom come up, and two old man go up in beer. Me play equal now. but you know how abuse that became. So those are some of the considerations we should give when we're talking about whether independence came, whether we should have waited for another 10 years or no, God, you know. And if we had waited for another 10 years, would Vanuatu had been helped during the independence by 1980? Imagine if we had become independent in 1985. And by me, late bus o kaya. Now all mining, now all something blame, who said but developing. Or again, if we had become independent later, would the bougainville crisis had ever happened or not? There are a lot of ifs. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. That's very interesting coming, hearing your opinion of things. I'll move on to the third question. So my third question is, as Papua New Guinea achieved some of its goals and objectives from the first foreign policy?
I think we did. The reason why we have strengthening bilateral relations around the country, around the world, the reasons why we hosted APEC, the reason why we have embassies around the world is attributed to that friends to all, enemy to none. So under the flag, friends to all, enemy to none flag, we went around meeting and greeting and setting up relations with all the countries. You know, even with Russia. You know, back, I think I remember correctly that Russia had an embassy here in Port Moresby. Had a resident ambassador in Papua New Guinea also back in the 1980s, I think, or late 70s. So all lapun, all thing right now working. And then our fathers again thought correctly when they said, okay, enough now, you mean friends of them all, we can decide. Online niya, talking more picking, no can go play on television online, la house, mo last time, or cross law. Dog blue me gon or stony me, so online no got. By me, mama cooking plate kaya na game online la upset, you may emol, by me friends on them all. Now that we can decide, we can choose now. Like I said, we have lots of resources. So we can choose who to share our resources with. The challenge is to choose correctly.
All right. Thank you. I'll be moving on to my third and final comment, which will lead to the final question, which will lead to my final and fourth question. So now my third comment is that, and you mentioned um, in your presentation that in the early years, in order for Papua New Guinea to progress as a new country, it was important for the country to move away from agriculture and focus on other sectors, diversifying other sectors such as mining and all that. But I believe it is important for our country to focus more on agriculture because about more than half of the population relies on agriculture every day to support and sustain their livelihoods. Therefore, as in the case of CP2, with the cocoa, the governor was able to, yeah. That's why I think it is important for Papua New Guinea to focus on agriculture and provide funding for it. So with that, I'll move on to my final question. So my final question is, was Papua New Guinea's independence a strategic move or stride at achieving national development?
I agree. I totally agree with what you're saying. Agriculture is the backbone of this country, and we need to strengthen its governance so that the full benefit of our people's agriculture prowess and uh, expertise come into being. When we have when we have four ministries being catered for by one department, that is a challenge. So we have the Department of Agriculture and Livestock, we have the Department of, and then we have the Minister for Agriculture and Livestock, we have the Minister for Oil Palm, Minister for Coffee, now one am not again. So those are government decisions. But the bureaucracy that is now required to run it is only one department, the DAL, Department of Agriculture and Livestock, with its structure, confirmed everything. So look at, so this department used to run one minister, support one minister. Now it has been asked to support the other three ministries. So how they go about it now is the biggest challenge, and then you bring in the commodity boards into play. So the question is, why are we still like this after 50 years? Why is Papua New Guinea still like this after 50 years? When agriculture has been its backbone and should have been its money making, complementing the support of the budgetary support of the extractive sector. My personal thought is, we need to diversify. Where are the free trade agreements tying down our markets for our agriculture products? We're still working on that. Why are we not able to bring in taro, cacao, or bananas into the Australian market? While we are watching the Polynesians are bringing that into their markets. What is wrong? What did we do wrong to warrant that? Now, one of the questions is agriculture itself. Is agriculture oriented itself, I think. According to one of the agriculture experts I had the privilege of discussing this agenda with a couple of years ago, he told me that I don't know what vegetable, I can't remember what vegetable is, whether it was yam or taro, but we have more than 200 diseases that requires that have to go through the Australian quarantine regulations in order to bring our products down there. The Polynesians only have 3, which are easily rectified and also going to the market. One. Now, secondly, even if we fixed up those hundreds of diseases, now you may fix them all up now. The cost of doing business in this country will not allow our product to be sold down there profitably. So once you go to Australia and you visit Coles or you visit Woolworths, now you go to vegetable section, buy look or cacao or taro or Fiji, will be maybe $4 a kilo. While you go upside, we look at cacao or taro or Papua New Guinea, $79 a kilo. Why? Because the cost of Karim come down to highlands, Karim come down to most people to the ship now go is high. So those are some of the supply chain challenges which we need to fix up first before we can move our agriculture to the next level. Yes, there have been points take. There have been wins. We have got wins in agriculture, but I personally think that the wins are not that many to warrant that agriculture can become a really money-making activity for our people in the village. I do agree that agriculture is the backbone of this country. That's a given. But how can we make it so that online law place here, or markets are open all the way into the little villages? No, you know, Pioneer Big Market, or the Kisim car na go drive 2 hours into that village na buy. No, you drive 2 hours, you have to go secured. So that brings another issue again. Now, when the condition of the road too, by all you will drive 2 hours or 3 hours. Or no, you go online blocking road there because we're not paying compensation in the ground road. those are all the things that is really putting our agriculture industry, providing it with challenges before, so it can achieve its full productivity level. So that's my point on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ako. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Valentine, and thank you, Mr. Ako. We move on to Stella Marie. Stella Marie, please go ahead.
Good day, Mr. Yagiora and Mr. Ako and everyone. I have 4 questions and 1 comment to make. So my first 2 questions will be from the topic sonorous influence. So the first question reads, what are woofers and dimes? And the second question is, what is one thing that you are grateful about for PNG to receive its independence? I'll let you answer those 2 questions and then I'll move on to
Repeat the one about Wolfers again.
What are woofers and dimes?
Oh, from the presentation. Wolfers and
Yes.
Dim.
Yes.
Ted Wolfers and William Dim, former Foreign Secretary. They both wrote a document. That's why I said Wolfers and Dim.
All right. And the second question is, what is one thing that you are grateful about for PNG to receive its independence?
That's a very, very challenging question. There's a lot of grateful, being grateful. I think I can say that being grateful about Papua New Guinea's independence was was growing up in the military establishments. Okay, because if the PNGDF had not been localized, then my late dad would and the 5 other padres, ministers would not have be taken over from the Australian chaplains. Then I would not have experienced the best part of my life, growing up and mixing around with peers and friends from all parts of Papua New Guinea, both male and female. And most all we still maintain contact. We meet and because it was like a village. You know, if any of you have visited an army barracks or lived in it, it was a village. You know, but, you walk in really growing one man reporting you finish. Just in place. Bago kotim mo. Or you go steal or garden. I mean, not steal, but I mean borrow him cow or tapioca number lo garden dolman or langko looking. All bakam kotim lo papaya. You buy some time. So those are some of the things, and I feel so privileged to have been part of that, because that has also helped me today to continue supporting the and keeping records for the PNGDF in terms of the military books which we will be writing and writing. That would be the only all of us would never have gone through the colonial experience which our fathers did. So their opinion or their answers to that question would be different. My late dad never talked about the colonial stuff. Maybe they were West, so they decided to lock them away and forget them. But those were some of the. Although my grandparents had more fond memories of their engagement with the London Missionary Society missionaries. See, that's another different thing again, because everyone knows that the missionaries built in this country law education. There were no government schools. Both at the New Guinea side, both at Papua side, the missionaries were the educators. Right up to right up until 1906, when the Australians took over, then a bit of education, but the missions continue to cover education. And look, being independent is good too. We get to think about do our own stuff. Imagine if we were independent. I think instead of looking Facebook mina mislagero, we looking Facebook man Melbourne, na man Tasmania, all story lo you plus stuff. Lo foreign policy, lo country blow.
Yeah. Thank you for your answer. For today's lesson, I have 2 questions and 1 comment. So the first question is, how did Somare's visit to China disturb the relation between PNG and Indonesia?
Okay. Everyone knows that China is a communist country. Somare visits, and while during that visit, you had the Papua Besana making noise, and you had Bougainville making noise, and you had the Matangan Association making noise about land issues, and these were disturbing to our friends across the border. And they wanted that to be stabilized and everything returned to normal, because if this triple one may influence him online across the border, then OPM one may increase. And like I mentioned, that was the biggest fear of all the Republic, the Indonesian Republic had, of spillover effects of this lab let's say anti-government feelings and movements. So that was the reason. And then when Chief Somare went to China, it raised a lot of eyebrows. Hey, mania mas him support now, yeah. Lokam support him online. All those thoughts came up. So that's how Suharto raised concerns on that.
All right. So during your presentation, you mentioned that the coalition government removed Sejules Chen as the country's finance minister, and it appeared that they considered him a political threat. Hence, my question is, why did they consider Sejules Chen as a political threat?
Sorry, Mr. Ako, you're on mute.
Sorry. Okay, I was saying that's politics, and we read from his book that he moved across because his ideas were not being entertained, and that's why he called his prime minister a dictator. So if someone call you a dictator, then obviously you have to see him as a threat. So I think that was just politics at play.
Okay. Now, onto my comment. It is based on a group of forces, which consists of 4 strong friends, namely Charles Lapani, Meker Murata, Robin Navalio, and Anthony Siaguro. So my comment on that is that it is true that strong friends have healthy coping mechanisms and they encourage growth rather than avoidance, and they help each other through bad storms and inspire each other to be great. So on the leadership pipeline, out of those 4 friends, 2 became prime minister and all held influential roles that shape national policy and international relations. So on the bottom line, if our members in the parliament have this kind of friendship, I think they will have a great impact on our nation, yeah, and build this nation to be a great one. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella Marie, for your comments and your questions, and thank you everyone as well. We'll move on to Odelia.
Good morning, Mr. Ako, Mr. Yagera, and everyone else. I have two questions, two general questions. And the first one is, well, it's related to foreign policy and Melanesian value. I asked Mr. Yagera questions similar to the one that I will ask now. So um I just wanted to know, in your opinion, what do you think so in what ways does the friends to all, enemies to none foreign policy relate to the Melanesian values? Or do you think it does?
It does. It relates to our Melanesian values. If someone visits your home, I know obviously you want to, under current situations now, we won't welcome them immediately, but we ask them, you come looking, Musat. I came to see your father. Okay, that's resting or what, but any message I can take? So the mere fact that you are talking to them, that portrays friendship. Unless you close your gate in their faces and then that's enemy. So we have to always always remember the fact that we were a new country, and for a new country you have to go out look for business. You can't wait for people to come in and come to you. You have to go out and look for business. Look at a new SME startup. I'm not saying nothing na start. He goes out promoting his business. I'm new, I'm open for business, come, I have good prices, all that, come try me out. That was the way it was looked at. But the Melanesian culture was part and parcel of that equation. And those our fathers were all hardcore traditionalists. And they knew their traditional boundaries, they knew their traditional protocols. And Sir Michael would have been such an extraordinary person to bring in all these leaders, all those interests to merge into one interest and move. You have when you sit, if you ever are fortunate enough to attend a village gathering, sit back and observe the elders talk, and then find out later who was the older among these elders. Or why was this person talkative when we know that he's the youngest of all these elders? Why was he being influential? So those are some of the things you can be the youngest of the older lapun standing there, but if you are influential, or if they knew that I'm on this la 7 pa lapun stab, this la influential money, and person go to grade 5. Lo mission school, not go to grade 3, now all go losing go work garden or one of something. Then they'll always make they'll refer to him when discussing things of some educational issues. But when it comes to the traditional protocol, everyone knows. Now you sit down, even regardless, some people were making fun of me when I was in 2018 when I was the Apex senior official. I had to go to a village ceremony, and because I'm titled outside there. Time you go inside them, Mipla, when you look at the houses in Hanobara, you look at the also house or stuff, the pathways going up. They are in your seniority. So our house is number 4. Our family house is number 4. So go sit down and pass him out until you ask for folks. No got them all. You just notice on that. Get in finish na go second in big blank hole na walk out. So those protocols are respected, and that's part of our lives. So that was how I think the old people went about doing that. Friends to enemy to none up into the international level.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Aguirre, okay, I have a 26% left on my battery, so we'll talk until it goes out. Go ahead.
Miss Rennie is the last one because we are running out
Okay.
of time as well. So, yes, Odile.
Yeah, so just a follow-up question from the first question that I asked. Yeah, how has globalization challenged or reinforced Melanesian values in PNG's foreign policy? Yeah.
That's a very good question too, and it balances with the APEC process. You see, in the APEC process, countries don't use their weight. Economies don't use their weight. There is a consensus system. The U.S. Proposal will not be approved until the 20 members approve it. Then it becomes then it can be converted into a policy paper or a ministerial meeting or a workshop or what. So what happens is that time the U.S. Proposes that concept note, it goes out to the other economies and it goes out lobbying. So during the bilateral piece of the bilateral meeting I showed between Ambassador Pomaliu and Ambassador Tangian, those things are discussed there. Ambassador Tangian might have a proposal, but it requires support from everyone. So during that bilateral meeting, I'm talking Ambassador Pomaliu, we have this proposal and we hoping you can support it and also inform the others to support it. So then you see, then we are in our space because our traditional system talks about consensus. It's only when it comes to negotiating, then you put in your firepower ahead. Like for us, bilateral negotiating during the APEC years, we put in our doctors out. Then the academia came into play. If it concerns some pricing or structural reform, we put in Dr. Billy Manoka out in front to lead, while Ambassador Pomaliu out of protocol never attended that bilateral meeting. So Dr. Manoka will lead the delegation and he'll take charge. If it was anything to do with forestry, Dr. Ruth Turia took charge. So we have to use our resources on hand to advance the country's interest. If you want to maintain your status and you come into a meeting, immediately the moment you say your first sentence, the other side will realize that you are not the expert. The expert is sitting three seats down that way. And it will be so embarrassing if in their response to your question, they keep on looking at the expert not talking. So those are some of the considerations that we have to do when we are talking or when we are leading delegations to talk. So in terms of globalization, that's how it happened. When you look at the WTO, it's a different game. The WTO is negotiation. There is no consensus. In the WTO, the bigger countries pushing weight now go through. That's the reason why, again, for us, Papua New Guinea, you Karim Bilubli Pula Plokakena, Karim Gula WTO, na talk Miga or something stuff. Let's talk as equals. Not as big plan really economic. Let's talk as equals. You might be big, but Bilubli empty and me, I got 2 billions. Tell us what you want and let's talk about how to balance it. So at WTO, you need different types of negotiators to go. At APEC, you need the different types. So you balance him. You balance it. Like even in the village too, when I want to ask borrow him drill or something, no. And if I know that the last time you go, uncle have been been agree or lending money, then Mr. Salim favorite nephew blame go. Go and ask him Bobo. Mina play use him name blue, use him name blue to you like use him drill. Emba give him. You not gonna go call him name blue, emba not give him. So like that. That's how in the diplomatic world, economies also go and bet on behalf of others. And that's how we secure support for APEC 2018 with the US and China doing that and Indonesia doing that on our behalf, convincing the other members of the ASEAN caucus, convincing the other members of the ASEAN +2, ASEAN +3 that PNG is doing it because we will be supporting them. If you do not support them, then you are not supporting us. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ako.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Reni, and thank you, Mr. Ako, and thank you all those who asked questions and made very good comments to contribute to our discussion on PNG's foreign policy. We'll continue this Friday, and we thank you all for your time and for attending this session. And this Friday, we will look at the MTDP4 as a driver in PNG's foreign policy making. So Mr. Ako will try to unpack what's in the strategic plan, MTDP4, and then look at how we can use it as a driver to drive how we deal with other countries bilaterally or multilaterally. So We'll continue the discussion this Friday, and those who are on the list for questions and answers, we move to Friday as well. So thank you, everyone. Please, you all have a great day, and see you again this Friday. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. See you on Friday. School good.
Thank you, Mr. Akbar.